Patrick at Pals. You know, projects come to us in all different configurations. Sometimes they're like the good humor truck that needs a transmission replacement. They want to go from a 3-speed manual to a 3-speed automatic. Sometimes it's like my Buick. The car is driven regularly, but something breaks and needs to be updated, or it needs maintenance. Sometimes it's like the Jeep. A regular driver that developed oil leaks, and now we're resealing the engine. Sometimes it's like the TR6. This car was a complete roller when it came in. No drivetrain, no electricity, no interior. Just a gutted vehicle. You know, these vehicles take varying lengths of time. A full restoration can take up to 2 years, maybe 2.5 years sometimes. A simple reseal on an engine, you know, that's within a month, usually by the time you get the parts. You have to think about things when you're doing these projects. 2 years is a long time. Things can change. Your health can change. Your money situation can change. Before you start a project like this, make sure that you've got the wherewithal to finish it. Sometimes things change and folks have a problem. Now these folks don't have a problem. Everything's fine. We're moving right along on it. Same thing with this Jeep. But sometimes we've had cars come in and the folks just can't finish them for whatever reason. Maybe it's a health problem. Maybe it's a financial problem. So always be aware that when you're doing a project like this, you can start it, and the way that we do it at Pals is we take draws. So you give us a draw of money, we work with that money until it's depleted. Then we come back, we show you what we've done, where we're at with it, then we estimate another draw and go forward. That way, you're not putting all your money out at one time. And it works out well. Usually, if you can see the project progressing, you're feeling pretty good about it. It's when a project comes into the shop and stalls, and nobody works on it. That's when people have trouble. We've all heard stories, the horror stories of a car sitting 2 or 3 years in a shop and not being worked on. That doesn't happen at Pals. At Pals, we work on them. We get them out. The only thing we're limited to is the customer. How quickly the customer can get us the next draw so that we can complete the project. When it's, and this is not a minor project with the engine, but it's a significant project. The folks have to be prepared that it's going to cost X amount of dollars. With this project, the TR6, a complete roller, there's no way to estimate what the total cost will be. There's just no way that we can say on a complete roller. For instance, we had to put in shims on the body. You would have thought that would have been done when they prepared it for paint, but it wasn't. These are the things you run into that you don't know. The customer has a lot of parts for this car, but he doesn't have all the parts. We have to source the parts. That takes time. That's what slows a project down. If you've got a project, bring it to Pals. We want to work on it. We're happy to work on it. We'll show you every step of the way that we do it. We punch a time clock and we record the hours worked on the car. When we're working on the car, we're clocked in. When we're not working on the car, we're clocked out, and we're clocked in on another vehicle. And that's how we charge you at Pals. Chuck, let's talk about realistic expectations for your restoration at Pals.
Well, here we have the ice cream truck that was born with a 3-speed manual transmission. That's all that ever existed in this vehicle back in that time. So you can see all the manual components laying on the floor over here. They've been removed from the vehicle. Why? Because this customer wants to make it an automatic. So we're putting in a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, the expectation is they'll be able to get in the vehicle, drive down the road like any 3-speed automatic from back in the 70s or 80s. And that's the expectation that's realistic, okay? When they get this back, they'll have plenty of driving time with the vehicle, and it'll be an automatic transmission. So what happens with people sometimes, though, their expectations aren't what the result are. So we try to apprise them of that ahead of time so that the result that they get is what we've told them they'll get.
So in other words, customer comes in and says, I want to change this over to a 3-speed automatic. Give me a price on that, and you give them a total price, right?
No, there's no way to price that because you don't know what you're going to have to fabricate or change or modify in order to fit that in the vehicle. So there's adapter plates, there's cross members, there's welding and cutting. And so what we do is I can give them a price on the components, but as far as the time goes, we bill that in real time. The technician, he punches a time card when he starts, he punches a time card when he's finished, and we bill that in real time because there's no guide that says what you're going to do. There's always cutting and modification. In this particular vehicle, Jimmy had to remove a ½ an inch off of each side of the cross member to properly make it fit to marry to the transmission. So you don't know that going in. You have to wait till you get all your geometry and your measurements so that everything lines up properly.
So of course you explain that to the customer that here, I can give you a price on the transmission. I can give you a price on the installation kit. We know the installation kit's not going to be complete. We know we're going to have to fabricate things, and we do it by the hour from there, right?
That is correct, and it's the only way you can do it when you're doing something like this or any restoration job. Because when you're dealing with vehicles that are older, there are things that just don't exist. We had a Corvette that we had to modify, and what we did was we put in an electric cooling fan. Well, Jimmy had to make the fan shroud himself. So we had to get out our cutter, cut a circle as a template for the fan, and then actually marry a fan to a shroud that he made to put in that vehicle. That's unforeseen. You can't plan on that, and there's no way to tell somebody what that's going to cost.
And one of the things we do, and I notice that you're very effective with this, you talk to the customer about costs. You tell them that it's got to be open-ended. And you make sure that the customer understands that and has got the wherewithal. There's been jobs we've turned away because we know the customer, and the customer realizes it's too big a project. They can't afford it.
Yes, that happens all the time because what people's perception is and what the reality is are always two different things. That's why here at PALS we go to great detail to explain exactly what they're looking at, exactly what the cost could possibly be.
You know, it's interesting. I watch all the shows on TV, you know, whether it be Chip Foose or whether it be Phantom Works, and everything takes time and everything has a cost. Some of the shows are plain about how much it costs. Some of them never tell you how much it's cost. You think it's a very inexpensive project, and it's a very expensive project.
That's correct. You know, when you're working with these older vehicles like that, a lot of times just getting a part because it doesn't exist anymore can be very costly and also can be very difficult. We had a project where we had to send the bumpers off. Well, the cost of re-chroming the bumpers was enormous, but it's what the customer wanted, so we gave them what they wanted. That's the other thing here at PALS. We don't make any decision. We let the customer make decisions. We present them with the facts. This is where you're at. How do you want to proceed? And we let them make that choice.
Folks, when you're doing these things, you know, these are terrific vehicles. I mean, who's got an ice cream truck like this? Well, the folks in South Florida got it. They're going to use it in their resort. It's a great vehicle. Nobody else has got one, but it's a one-ism. Putting in this transmission requires a lot of thought, and it requires expertise that we can offer to you at PALS. That all comes at a cost. It also takes time. Nothing is done in a short period of time.
No, it's not. And again, we like to try to prepare the customer for what they're getting. We like to prepare them for what it's going to take to complete the job, and we try to let them know up front that it may cost more than what they think. Because we want them to be prepared. We don't want to shell shock anybody. So here at PALS, one of the many things we do besides fix daily drivers is a lot of custom work, a lot of rehab, refurbish, rebuild work, okay? And what I want to talk about this morning is these project cars that we have here and your project car. You know, people come in and they have an idea in their mind of what they want. but sometimes they don't have the perception of what it's going to cost to do a car. This car came to us basically a shell. No motor, no transmission, no electronics, no doors. We've been steady putting this car back together for the customer. When you do restoration work, though, it's time consuming and it's costly. Sometimes people's perception of what the cost is and what it really will be don't match up.
And the time is the same way, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is not 2 weeks of work here.
No, this is hours upon hours upon hours of work. And how we bill that is because there's no labor guide or time guide on these things. No predictability of parts. Parts are very difficult to get since COVID as well. Something that used to get off the shelf may take a month to get now. But the way we bill on these cars is in real time. The technician punches a time card when he starts. He punches a time card when he's done. Whatever that time is, that's how we bill for that vehicle. And we keep track of every hour and every minute on every single vehicle because it is time consuming. Rewiring the car, putting in the electronics. If you come back here, look under the dash, we've started wiring up the stuff for the dash. All of that takes time, especially when you get the car in boxes. Now, it's a little easier if you take the car apart yourself and then put it back together. But like this particular car, it came to us in boxes. So we've got a car that we didn't disassemble that we are now rebuilding. And a lot of the parts were missing, were not there. And so it takes time to find out where it goes, how it hooks up, and where to get it from.
So the first step, like a car like this, you've got to inventory the parts that come into the car and assign every part a name and a location where it goes.
That is correct. Luckily, with the internet, there's lots of diagrams out there that we can use to find where things go.
So then you start assembling it, and you're missing a part, and you order it, and on this TR6, you found several of them have got to come from England.
That's
right?
correct, which takes weeks, sometimes months to get. So, there's no time frame on doing a restoration job, especially one that comes to you basically as a puzzle, because again, we never disassembled the car. The customer did years ago, and now we're putting it back together for them.
So like with this customer, the customer took this car apart, probably took it apart in about a month, and he said, wow, okay, I got it apart in a month, I should be able to get it back together in a month. But that's not how it works, is it?
No, and what happened was the customer found out that he was unable to put it back together, so he wanted us to do that. See, that's the other side of restoration work. The months that it takes to do something, people's lives change, their financial situations change, their health changes, and that could be a stressor on doing the rebuild.
And so one of the ways we help folks with that is instead of asking for all the money up front or half the money up front, what we do is we do draws, right? We pick a particular dollar amount depending on what the job is. Like the draw for this TR6 would be different than the draw for this Jeep that just needs the engine resealed. I mean, that's a big project, the engine resealed, but it's not near the project that a full restoration is.
That is correct. And so what happens is we take that draw, and any parts that we get, we bill it against the money that's been given to us. Any hours that we work on the car that have been logged on a time card, we then bill against that draw. If that draw then becomes used, we will reach back out to the customer and ask for another draw. Sometimes projects may require 2 or 3 draws depending on how much and what we're doing.
And sometimes the customer has a life-changing event and they want to stop the project. And at that point, they're even with us, we're even with them. We can just put everything together and they can take it home until they're ready to go forward.
That is correct. And if that happens in the middle of a project that we're doing, what we would do is, again, fix everything so they can take it home. When their situation gets better physically, mentally, or financially, we can have them bring it back so we can resume and finish that project for them. Because we certainly here at PALS understand that people's lives change over the course of doing these projects. It can take a month to do the Jeep. It can take a year to do the TR6. And that happens with these projects. If you watch any of the mainstream car shows, you'll see that they take months.
Right.
In
It's
order-
not a 1 week project.
That is correct. It takes months to do that. It takes a lot of computer time. We've got time finding diagrams for this that have hours invested into them because the car came to us in pieces. Now, the Jeep we took apart ourselves, this is not a big deal because we took it apart. We have everything in place to put it back together. But every project's different. Every project's needs are different. Every person's life situation is different. And so we take all that into account here at PALS. We want to have you have the best project completion that you can have for yourself. And if your life situation changes, we certainly respect and understand that here, and we'll do whatever's necessary to help you either wrap up your project, take your project home till you're in a better situation, or to finish your project.
Well, that's a great explanation, Chuck. You know, if you've got a project, folks, bring it to PALS. We'll take care of it in a timely manner, and we'll have you a good result. See you soon.